The radical left and some on the right have piled onto the Covington Catholic kids in something straight out of George Orwell's 1984. Yes, that's right. Nick Sandmann, the guy who was front and center in front of the Native American banging the drum, is guilty of a face crime. We'll look into that, and we'll also look at the latest from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who not only says that the world's going to end in 12 years, but she doesn't give an F at what other Democrats think about her. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
And God bless the United States of America.
All right, on Monday, we looked at the reactions and what actually went down with the Covington Catholic kids during their trip for the March for Life last Friday. We showed the actual video. We showed what happened. Today, I want to talk about some of the reaction on the left, the piling on, the pummeling that was delivered to these kids and to their parents with no regard for their well-being whatsoever. Here's a tweet from Jack Morrissey, who's affiliated with Disney, who is a producer, I believe, on Beauty and the Beast. Here's what he wrote. He said, "MAGA kids go screaming, hats first, into the wood chipper." This is what he posted. Now, Morrissey has since apologized, saying that he wouldn't ever seriously suggest violence against kids. So he jokingly suggests violence against kids. This is how they kind of couch things. Oh, it was just a joke. It was just no big deal. But there's a lot more. Here's a tweet from Eric Abras, and here's what he wrote. This is from the Washington Times. I don't know what it says to me, but I've truly lost the ability to articulate the hysterical rage, nausea, and heartache that this makes me feel. I just want these people to die. Simple as that. Every single one of them and their parents. This is words of wisdom from the left. Here's more. Here's Sarah Beatty, who is supposedly a comedy writer and wrote for Saturday Night Live at one point. Here's one of her tweets. "I will blow whoever manages to punch that MAGA kid in the face." And then she goes on, of course. "Oh yes, the kid who was marching against women's reproductive rights while wearing a hat promoting an evil, homophobic, racist, misogynist sociopath was totally misrepresented." And as you guys have followed, this has gone on and on, whether it's Kathy Griffin, other Hollywood stars, all the media and NBC News, CBS News, they all piled on the story. What's interesting is that as soon as it broke that the story was false, that these kids didn't do anything wrong, rather than following up and posting retractions and apologies, a lot of them just simply ignored the story. Here's a screenshot that I took from my computer of the CNN website yesterday, and any mention of the story, you can just look right through it, is gone. It just disappeared as if it never happened. It's like, oops, we attacked these kids, the school shut down, their lives are hell, but we don't care. Now, President Trump jumped in with a tweet. Here's what he had to say. "Nick Sandmann and the students of Covington have become symbols of fake news and how evil it can be. They have captivated the attention of the world, and I know they will use it for the good, maybe even to bring people together. It started off unpleasant, but it can end in a dream." So my question is, what are the bounds of the left? I mean, when you really look at what's going on in society, there's not this great societal epidemic. There's not this massive racial tension that they want to lead you to believe. Most of the people are just going on with their lives, living their days, and it's the radical left who are looking for issues like this to blow out of proportion and for the media to jump on to make it look like anyone who is a Christian, anyone who's white, anyone who supports Trump is bad. And it really, there's one particular example that I want to point out. This is a tweet from a guy over at Gizmodo, and it really goes into the deeper meaning of what's going on with the left. His name's Alex Kranz, and here's what he wrote. "From elementary school through college, I went to school with sheltered upper middle class white boys who could devastate with a smirk, a facial gesture that weaponized their privilege. Infuriatingly, you can't fight that effing smirk with a punch or words. We saw that as Trump smirked his way through the election, and we'll see it as that boy from Kentucky's friends, family, and school protect him." All right. Now, he's mad at the way the kid looked, the reaction that he made while having a drum beat in his face by the protester. So I want to give you this passage from George Orwell's 1984. Just take a look at this. In any case, to wear an improper expression on your face, to look incredulous when a victory was announced, for example, was itself a punishable offense. There was even a word for it in Newspeak, Facecrime, it was called. That's what the Covington kids are guilty of in the eyes of the left. It's a face crime. They didn't like the way he reacted, and they decided to jump on it, making that, in many of the people's reactions on the left, the punishable offense. They didn't like the way he looked. They didn't like the face he was making. He had a punchable face. And they decided to pile on just because of his inaction. The left advocates a certain course of action, and if you deviate from that, you will be punished. And in addition, I think this also speaks to some of the reaction from the right. There was absolutely no reason at all for some of these people like Bill Kristol and National Review and some of the others to jump on this story at all. It's a small video taken out of context from a dubious source, and yet they jumped on it, and I think it was from this face crime mentality as well. They saw the left reacting. They saw that they were heated. They saw the media was jumping on board. And rather than do nothing, rather than being accused of condoning or supporting these kids, they decided that what they would rather do is seek favor with the left. What they would rather do than protecting these kids, they didn't care if these kids' lives are trashed, if the school's shut down, if the parents are receiving threats. As long as they were in favor, held in favor from the left, then they were okay. They weren't guilty of a face crime. No, not me. And the left said it was okay. And what better targets than these kids? You have white males, Catholic, pro-life Trump supporters. The media was in a frenzy, and some of these folks, rather than being held accountable, rather than saying, hey, this story's wrong, you freaked out media people, let's get it right, they jumped on board just to save face within the far left-wing media establishment. And it's quite pathetic and just really disheartening when you have people that won't get the full story but will jump on board. So be on the lookout for that, because that's the way the country is headed, where if you have the wrong attitude, if you have the wrong look, if you have the wrong gesture, you're guilty of a face crime in the eyes of the left. So now let's move on to something that's not quite as frustrating, but definitely more entertaining, and that's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She was recently in an interview during MLK Day, and here's one of the things she had to say.
I think that the part of it that is generational is that millennials and people and Gen Z and all these folks that come after us are looking up, and we're like, the world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change. So
there you go. Her attitude towards, she considers herself a Democrat socialist, whatever that means, because it's a pure socialist. And she went on to talk about the billionaires and income, and here's a follow-up clip.
Maybe this idea of idealizing this outcome of maybe one day you too can be a billionaire and own more than millions of families combined is not an aspirational or good thing.
And here's something else that she had to say regarding billionaires. You can read it right here. She says, a system that allows billionaires to exist when there are parts of Alabama where people are still getting ringworm because they don't have access to public health is wrong. And she went on in her interview basically saying that people should not aspire to better themselves in life, to become billionaires. So she's going after the money. And when you think about it, isn't that what you want people to grow up to be, to better themselves? If you see someone who's rich and you see someone who's successful, the way my parents always showed me is that you can be that person someday. You can better yourself through education, through hard work. Now, the whole mantra on the left is, you see that person, you should be jealous of that person, you should hate that person. We are going to bring them down under policies that we say will elevate you. And it doesn't even do that. It doesn't even elevate the lower class or the middle class. The middle class is doing quite well right now, but what they want to do is tear down rather than build up. And here's a quote on her income tax, or tweet on her income tax proposal that she forwarded along that really sums up their way of thinking. The root justification for marginal tax rates is not about collecting revenue. It is about regulating inequality in the market economy. It is also about safeguarding democracy against the oligarchy. So there it is, right there. Governments exist and they tax people to pay for their services, but that's not their idea. That's not their goal. Their goal for taxation is to punish the rich, to bring them down in a way to level the playing field, which will never be level. People will always be different. People will have different drive, different determination, different capabilities, and there will always be separation. And rather than trying to have policies that allow people on their own to build themselves up, their whole policy is to tear people down. Now, I want to also talk about something that just really cracked me up. She gave an interview the other day, and I don't know if this is her just inexperience with the media or just living in her la-la land where she doesn't think anything should ever be said about her, bad about her, regardless of what she says. So she's taking heat from Republicans and Democrats for some of the things she's saying during her short term as a freshman in Congress. And she's getting pushback. She's getting pushback from the Democrats, some of them telling her to just, hey, calm it down, just kind of wait your turn type of thing. And so she was on Stephen Colbert's show, and he asked her about some of this pushback from the Democrats, and here's how that exchange went.
On a scale of 0 to some, how many do you give?
I think it's 0.
That's what I thought.
Okay, so she gives 0 bleeps to what they think about her. And of course, that's a quotable moment. And so she was quoted. And she was quoted in numerous news sources. And she freaked out because she said she was misquoted. Here's one in particular. I actually didn't say this. So while I know brown women cursing drives clicks, maybe you accurately quote the whole exchange instead of manipulating people into thinking I said this sentence instead of just the word 0. Now here's her reaction to Politico. In a shock to no one, Politico is also running the misattribution as well. Here's what actually happened. I was asked a question on a late night show and answered with the word 0. And finally, she took issue with the New York Post, who not only misquoted her, according to her, but used an angry picture. Here she goes. And here's the New York Post, not only running the false quote, but adding an angry photo to boot. This is how hysteria develops out of nothing at all. Well, guess what? It's not hysteria. It's a quote. If the media asks you a question and all you do is respond with the answer, they're going to put the answer in quotes and put context for the readers. That's what they did here. The only one who's hysterical is AOC, and it's just so funny that she can go on national TV and say she gives 0 bleeps to what people think, but then when they quote her on it, she doesn't have a reaction. So I thought that was funny. And in addition, just prepare yourselves, get your wills together, get everything together, because the world's going to end in 12 years. That's our show for today. Please subscribe to our channel. Please check us out on social media. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.